When I first started following Jesus, I went to a college student Bible study. And it was my first few weeks in, and the group leader started out that night saying, "Hey, all of us tonight, we're going to share our stories of how we got to know Jesus." And I thought, great, I can't wait to hear from these other people. And then he said, "Donnie, you go first." I'd never been to a Bible study group like that one before. I'd never really read my Bible before. I was brand new to being a Christian, and I stuttered through it. Now, how would all of you feel on the other side of the camera if I said, "Hey, take it, it's yours. Tell us about a topic you have little information about"? Well, we're in a teaching series called Encountering Jesus. We're looking at episodes in the Bible where Jesus interacted with regular people, and we're considering the impact it had on those people and how it applies to our lives. And today's encounter comes from a man who was suddenly brought into the spotlight and had to speak. With little knowledge, he was asked to speak. Something that would terrify most people. It starts in the New Testament book of John, chapter 9. This is one of my favorite stories from the life of Christ. So picture this. Jesus is walking along. He's with his disciples. He's teaching. He's in conversation with them. And then this happened in John chapter 9, beginning at verse 1. As he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" So picture the scene. There's Jesus, his disciples, and a blind man sitting on the road. He's probably begging. And the thing that they want to know is not how can we help him? They want to know what happened. How did he get this way? It kind of seems insensitive on the part of the disciples. Well, the popular view of God at that time was that if something was wrong in your life or with you, somebody must have sinned to cause it. And then God was punishing you for whatever you did. And because of the incomplete view of God, they were missing it. They were looking for someone to blame. And humans tend to do that when they have an incomplete view of God. They immediately blamed his problems on him, when the reason he was blind was probably simply because his optic nerves didn't develop properly in the womb. But Jesus answered them. And I love this answer in this next verse when Jesus says, "It was not because of his sins or his parents' sins," Jesus answered. "This happened so the power of God could be seen in him." With that one statement, Jesus brings a new way of thinking about problems they faced. No longer is it, "Hey, is it this person's fault?" I mean, can you imagine the disciples' conversation after that? "I thought it was his problem. I thought it was an easy way to attach blame." But the reality is, it's a way for God's work and power to be seen. Now, what if you started looking at the problems in your life that way? Instead of wallowing in guilt or thinking if they had just done that or not done that to me, but instead taking those hurts and mistakes and failures and fears, and you viewed them as an opportunity for God to show his power in your life. Here's what Jesus is teaching them. In the middle of our problems, there's an opportunity for God to work. Now, when we look out at our world and see the state of it, it's easy to just see problems. It's easy to just see hate. It's easy to just see anger and division. But if you look past that, look beyond it and see God working, see people loving, respecting each other and coming together. It's not always easy, and it won't come without hard work, but opening up and letting God work is always right. Hey, do you have problems in your life? Then you're in a perfect place to see the power of God work in your life. Now let's go back to this encounter. There's the blind man, the disciples who blame him for his problems, and Jesus. And listen what happens next. In John 9, beginning at verse 6, it says, "Then he spit on the ground, made mud with the saliva, and spread the mud over the blind man's eyes. He told him, 'Go wash yourself in the pool of Siloam.' So the man went and washed and came back seeing." And because of Jesus, the problem was gone. They came and looked for excuses, and Jesus was willing to show them a new way of thinking. And what if we thought like this? Take my problems, bring in the power of Christ, and big changes can happen in my life. Big ones. And I want that for you. I want that for us. Now he can see, and his problem is gone. But a new problem is about to show up. They put this newly healed guy on the spot. They hand him the microphone, the camera, and they ask him to speak. And here's how it plays out. In John chapter 9, beginning at verse 8, it says, his neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg? Some claimed that he was. Others said, no, he only looks like him. But he himself insisted, I'm the man. How then were your eyes open, they asked. He replied, the man they called Jesus made some mud, put it on my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and then I could see. Not, hey, you were blind and Jesus healed you. That's awesome. How does it feel to all of a sudden be able to see? You know, I actually know someone who was blind until he was in his late 20s. He had an experimental surgery, and then he could see. When I found that out, I asked him, how does it feel to go from blind to sight? But in this blind man's case, his neighbors didn't do that. They doubted him. They were upset because Jesus healed him on a day that they said was holy, and so they kept pushing, they kept questioning him. They could take him to another group to interrogate him even more. They ask other religious leaders, they ask his parents, they come back to him, and they ask him the same questions all over again, and it turned into a heated debate about who Jesus is. They called Jesus a false prophet. They called Jesus a sinner. And they wanted the former blind man to agree, and I love what he says here when they want him to agree that Jesus is a sinner. In John 9, verse 25, it says, he replied, whether he's a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see. See, here's what he's saying. Look, guys, there's a lot I don't understand, but I know this. I've never seen colors or watched children play or seen the sunset or watched the wind blow the trees. I've never looked into the eyes of my parents, but now I can. And I can do that because this man, Jesus, didn't treat me like I was damaged goods. I can't explain it, but I know what happened. I had problems, and through his power, he healed me, and now I can see. You know, there's a lot I don't know, but I know that before I met him, I could not see. I met him, and now I can see. That's what he was saying. That night at that Bible study, when I had to give my story, I'd memorized no scriptures. I'd never spoken in front of a group of people about spiritual things. I was really intimidated, but I went on and told about what Jesus had done in my life, about what my life was like a few weeks prior to that, and how in one day I accepted the power of Jesus and everything changed in my life. Essentially what I said was, I was one way and I met Jesus and now I'm different. And they all listened. And I remember later that night thinking, I like that. I could do that again. Every single one of you have that same potential to tell that kind of story. To simply say, I was one way, then I met Jesus, and now I'm another way. I was blind, but now I see. That's all you need to know. What if you had to fill in those two blanks? I was blank, and now I'm blank. I mean, how would you do it? I mean, what if you said, I was an angry person, and now I found peace. I was stressed out, a control freak, but now I'm learning joy. I was hopeless and depressed. Now I'm full of hope. I was full of bitterness, and now I'm finding forgiveness. I was abused, and now I'm loved. It was my way, and now I live his way. I was full of fear, and now I live full of faith. I was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. That's what the man was saying. And if you've ever been put on the spot, or if you ever are put on the spot, now you can say, I was this, and now I'm that, all because of Jesus. That's what this man born blind did. And he lived happily ever after. Well, not yet. His problems just kept coming. Because he tells him that he believes Jesus is from God. And a day that started with the problem of him being blind, the problem of his own neighbors doubting him, ends up having this happen. In John 9, verse 34, it says this, you were steeped in sin at birth. How dare you lecture us? And they threw him out. I mean, this guy can't catch a break. Nobody believes him, and now they kicked him out of town. He's discovering what we all need to. Not everyone will trust in Jesus to bring power in the midst of our problems. Not everyone will do that. And the ones who don't won't fully understand those of us who do. There's a lot going on in our world. Things we don't know. We don't know how they'll play out. Things we don't know how to answer. And what if we realize that we don't have all the answers? Know this. Problems will always be in front of us, but Jesus will always be willing to work within us. Always. I know that's the answer. Give Jesus room to work in the hearts of people and watch them come together. You have a disagreement with somebody? Give Jesus room to work in your heart and theirs and watch what happens. So the blind guy's been thrown out of town, and this next verse brings all of us hope, no matter who you are. Listen what happens in John 9, verse 35. Jesus heard they had thrown him out, and when he found him. Now, I want to stop right there so we can grasp what's happening. He was thrown out. And what did Jesus do? He went looking for him. What do you think he'll do for us when we've lost our way, when we're hurt, when we're confused, when we're alone? He'll come find us. Say that out loud. Jesus will come find me, no matter what. And as soon as Jesus finds this man who had been kicked out of his town, listen what happens in the rest of John 9, verse 35 through 38. Jesus heard that they'd thrown him out. And when he found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" "Who is he, sir?" the man asked. "Tell me so that I may believe in him." And Jesus said, "You have now seen him. In fact, he is the one speaking to you." Then the man said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshiped him. Jesus showed up in the middle of this guy's problems, and he displayed power, and this guy believed in Jesus. You may not be able to complete the sentence, "I was this, but now I'm that." You may have nothing to put in those blanks because you've never surrendered your life to Christ. You've never said, "Lord, I believe." And if you're ready for that, click on the live prayer tab and somebody's going to guide you through the start of your story with Jesus. And if you're watching this on playback or one of the on-demand times, just contact us and we're here to serve you. Now, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of the guy born blind. What do you think he did for the rest of his life every time he faced a problem? He would have probably gone to Jesus for the answer, for the truth, and for the restoration. What if we did that? I mean, look, there's a lot going on around us. A lot of pain, a lot of hurt, a lot of confusion, a lot of division, a lot of people saying, "How do we fix all that?" And I don't have all the answers, but I know who has the power to heal and to make us new. Look, we must realize in our lives and in our world, any answer other than the gospel and grace of Jesus Christ will not last. Only His will. What if we all led people toward that? Starting with me. I don't know a lot, but I do know that the power of Christ heals. I was lost and now I'm found. I was one way and now I'm another. That way, when we get our chance to talk or type and the spotlight is on us in our sphere of influence, we can say, "There's a lot I don't know and a lot of answers I don't have. All I know is that I was blind and now I see because of Jesus." What would our world look like if we all lived that way? Let's go find out.